Hey, welcome to episode 13. This week we'll be discussing the new top searches research tool that we're launching, and stay tuned for an artist interview with K7 Photography. So, thanks for joining us. This week we'll be telling you all about the new research tool and how it's going to help improve your searchability and know what customers are looking for. And stick around to the end because we're interviewing K7 Photography. So let me introduce the team first of all. I'm Mark and I'm responsible for member success. We've got Dan, who takes care of social media, and Mike, who runs the day-to-day operations. I'm going to jump straight in with our first-time sellers as well now. So the first-time sellers over the past 7 days are Alan Barker, Paul Gibson, John Russell, David Richardson, Jeanette Lee, Graham Matheson, Carl Day, Holly Burgess, Stephen Munn and Paul Stapleton. And our top 5 sellers for the past 7 days are Andrew Ray, Colin Allen, Yvonne and Paul Carroll, Tom Gomez and Jason Wells. Dan, social media.
So the editor's choices for this week, we have Angela H with Glasgow Clydeside, Jim Cook with Snowdonia, Tony Gaskin, Sunrise, East Pier, Whitby, North Yorkshire, Andrew Ray with Stormy Morning, Porthleven, K7 Photography with Lightning over Scarborough. And from today's date, the top surges are Scotland, Palenza, Cornwall, Lake District and Algarve. And remember guys, if you do have any images with these locations, get out there and start making collections around those. How are we finding this top searches information out? Well, the good thing is you will be able to use the same tool that we're using. We are releasing a top searches research tool available to all the artists very soon. This tool will be available on the member site and will also be closely integrated into the collections creator. So not only will you be able to see the top 5 searches of what customers are searching for on our website, but you'll be able to see hundreds of search terms with accurate live data. And that's going to completely change the way that you guys are able to use that information to create collections and present your work to customers based around those. How we think this will be most beneficial for you guys is you'll be able to use this tool daily to see what customers are searching for in real time, and you'll be able to go away, look for what they're searching for and create a collection around that. You'll also be able to see what they're searching for, and if you know you have those photographs in your portfolio, you'll be able to go back and check your keyword in to make sure that they have the best discoverability possible. So this is really exciting, and it's a huge step beyond what we're currently offering, and it's gonna really give you a greater insight into what your audience wants. So it's going to be really great when this releases. It's set to release within the next week. We will keep you updated with an accurate release date. So, as we said, we recommend you create collections around those research terms that you discover. And why are we recommending that, Mark?
Well, that's a good point. So this research tool is going to enable us to create more powerful marketing as well for your collections and for your artwork. So what we're going to do is, and we're in the process of doing, is building a new online magazine for Photo4Me that will live on the commercial site. It's like a digital magazine, and it's going to be based on those research terms, so the terms that people are looking for, and we're going to create articles around those to promote your work and you as the artists. So it's going to contain quite a few articles, and there'll be inspiration based on those popular searches. There'll be features on you, the artist, and your collections, and we'll have a selection of articles around trending items, gifting, interiors, a whole wealth of more as we grow it. So this is purely going to be aimed at the customer, the people that are potentially going to buy from us. And what we're going to be doing is asking you guys to start to contribute into that in the form of sound bites and interviews. But we're not asking you to come on video and stuff like that. But we will be sort of reaching out to you and maybe discussing, if we find that there's a great tool, a great search that comes up in our research tool. we will reach out to people who've got those images and those collections and say, well, would you like to talk about them? And we'll put a feature into this new digital magazine. So, do keep an eye out, and we will be getting in touch with you in the sort of coming weeks and days as we start to get that ready for release. So yeah, that's brilliant. Mike, what's going on? You're in the world, because how does this relate to the? Obviously, we got this research tool that's bringing in what customers are searching for. How do the guys make sure that they're getting to those results that people are searching for?
Well, that would be predominantly. Thanks, Mark. That would be predominantly through just keywords, which we've been trying to really encourage our membership to put into the pictures. Because if customers can't find the picture, then they're not going to buy it. So I'm going to explain to you on how we kind of just as moderators would even just pull up pictures that say, hey, you need to improve your keywords, because we've never visited every location in the UK or the world, So let me explain that. So the first picture here, I'll share my screen with you guys. So here we are. It is a beautiful picture of Bokadasi. Did I say that, guys? Is that right?
Sounds about right. Yep.
Okay, so Bokadasi. So nice picture, nice harbor. But then if we're looking at the keywords here, we just have the primary keyword is sea, sky, port. Now, no one's really going to look up sea, sky, port. So I would make Bokadasi my primary keyword. But then there's more to Bokadasi than just Bokadasi. So where do I find better keywords? Now, as you'll see, but my tab's open. I don't know anything about Bokadasi, but as a moderator, I would then Google Bokadasi, and then Wikipedia is our friend. And I would just pull out other keywords that I see in this article. I'm not going to read the whole article. I'm just looking for words that jump out at me and say, yes, somebody will look up that picture. So I could use Bokadasi. I would put Genoa, and then I would slide them into here. I would always put them at the beginning of my keywords and not at the end. So pro tip there. The second picture I came across of was this beautiful picture of, from what we can see, is the road to Applecross. But again, it's just the keywords here is mountain, sky, outdoor, grass, nature, landscape, cloud, lake, and hill. Now, if I were to go on the commercial website and I looked up any one of those keywords, you would get tens of thousands of keyword returns, and it would just be a mixture of everything. It's not specific enough to the image. Let's say Applecross came up in the popular search terms put on the website. Well, then, okay, well, what's around Applecross? Because it's we don't know what's the name of this lake or inlet. What is the name of this mountain? What is this near a small, tiny town? So I would, again, Google is our friend, and I would say, okay, well, let's look up Applecross Highlands. Okay, Applecross here, Inner Sound, Applecross Bay, Inner Hebridean, Isle of Rassy.
Yeah.
So again, there's a lot of really, really valuable keywords that we can put in here. And again, it's a great picture, but there's just nothing to bring the customer to actually view it. So that's how I would do it. I mean, so in saying that, if you, in the future or on the next podcast, if you want me to clear up any other reason why sort of part of the approval process works, or how do we speed up, and you could ask us why, and I will explain aren't getting through or are struggling to be found. So feel free to comment at the end of this video, and I'll be happy to address it next week.
Well, lovely. That was some great advice there. And again, the location is the main focus of your keywords. Tying that back into the research tool. If you see a location used in this new research tool, go back on your photos and make sure it is used in your primary keywords. So thanks a lot for that, Mike. And now it's time for our artist guest to join us. This week we're joined by K7 Photography, also known as Martin Jones. He's been on the website since 2011, since as little as 40,000 uploads to the website, so he's a true Photo4Me veteran. He's been taking photographs since he was 11 years old, and we're really excited to have Martin join us. So let's give Martin a warm welcome.
There we go.
Hey!
Martin, how's it going? Thanks
Very
so
well,
much for
sir.
joining us.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
No worries. It's Mark. Sorry. I'm actually quite excited because I've been speaking to Martin for, I don't know, years and years and years. This is the first time we've actually been able to talk in like a face to a name. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Martin.
Yeah. So a lot of you guys watching from the artist community will know Martin as K7 Photography. So Martin, why don't you go ahead, tell us what K7 Photography is all about, your background in photography, and how you've ended up here talking to us.
Well, I think I was one of the fairly early members on the site. I think it was 2010, 2011. K7 came about. I just wanted a name rather than a personal name. I just thought I'd try a different name. K7 comes about as a childhood hero was Donald Campbell. K7, it was his boat. I like the K7 logo that was on the boat with the infinity roundel, so I thought that looks good. So that was that. But in terms of my sort of photography journey, it started, I suppose, when I was about 10, probably less than that. I used to take pictures with my dad's camera. He showed me how to use it. He had an old Yashica Lynx, and I used to, when we were on holiday, he used to let me take pictures with it. And that sort of graduated when I was young. For my sins, I was a train spotter, so I used to take pictures of locomotives and other things like that, railway stuff. And it sort of graduated really. I did a bit of landscape when we were on holiday because we used to tour all over the caravan with my mum and dad when I was young. And I used to take, Lake District, Scotland, and my dad used to do a bit of landscape. So that's how I got into that really. And then when I got a job on a milk round when I was at school. That shows how old I am. I was able to afford my own SLR and sort of that sort of succession of old SLRs and moved into digital and sort of took it from there really. With the
I was just going to say that's amazing. I've noticed that post-processing is such a big part of your style as well. How did you develop that style growing up across your time taking photographs?
Well, obviously when I got into digital at first, it was just a case of sort of treating it, because it was obviously when it was early digital cameras, it was digital SLRs. It was like you sort of treated it like a film camera, and I didn't sort of realize the potential. I didn't shoot in RAW, I shot JPEG, and and just being able to see straight away, it was such a difference. So I didn't really sort of think about it. But what it really was a good friend of mine, Nigel. He's also on this site, Nigel Hatton. He was into Photoshop quite early on, and he sort of taught me the basics of it. He was really helpful, and I sort of took it from there. And like you say, you do develop your own style, because as you learn different methods and different plugins, and obviously start to shoot raw. It's like I suppose it's like painting, isn't it? People do get a style. I mean, I look at portfolios on here, and even if there was no names, whose work it is because of the style. So that's really it. And I mean, it is. I would say it's half the fun is the post processing as well.
I'm quite interested to ask, actually. Sorry, Dan. I just wanted to go back to your opening point, Martin, about being given a camera as a kid and that from that journey. Do you think that's going to get lost now in the generation that we've got now, because they've all got smartphones? And they're all, happy shooting on smartphones. So do you think that's going to become like a sort of a lost generation thing?
Yes, you mean the art of being able to take a picture manually?
And actually sort of considering it, because I mean, like you said, I mean, I'm the same. I went through old film cameras and stuff like that, and you took the picture, and you had to wait. There was no processing it immediately. You had to wait till it came back from Boots or wherever. To know whether you'd taken a good picture. So So
learning was
you had to sort of,
wasn't it? Because you literally had to put a 36 slide film through, and quite often 30 of them would be useless, and oh god, yeah.
There's always the obligatory photo of your feet and stuff like that.
Yeah. We tried to squeeze the last frame out of it, and I'm going to get 38 out of this one. Yeah.
Oh, I know that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wonder whether you thought that process, which is quite creative, would get lost with this sort of instant generation now that they've got smartphones and stuff.
I think so, because especially with all these filters that they can put on and and replace stuff and get rid of. They can do clone, but it's only basic, obviously. Still, I think it's no good for professional work yet, but I'm sure they will develop smartphones that can do it, and then it makes it more hard for us because we've got to really do something that they can't do with the smartphone.
Yeah,
and then it's becoming more and more difficult, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Martin. Oh, sorry, Mike. Go on.
I was going to say, Martin, because I've seen your photography for a few years. What would you? I mean, like, you take pictures of a lot of different things. Some artists are just they focus on one niche area, but you're quite diverse. So where would you classify yourself? Like, what kind of photography would you say you specialize in, or do you do, or are you just kind of like, I'm just happy to shoot whatever's interesting? Like, how do you? How does it come about that you think of, I'm going to take a picture of this, or what is your niche, so to speak?
I think generally I like obviously landscape, but I also like urban environments and engineering as well, bridges, railways, locomotives. You can combine the two. Which is what I try and do. You can get you can make a power station look like a landscape if you plan it. And you think about the locations, and you can add the extra elements to it. So it's not just a picture of a power station. It's got other elements like long exposure or whatever. So that's what I try to do, and obviously make it pop so it's really saturated and colourful.
Your picture of the power station with the I guess I don't know which highway that is, but just driving right by the highway.
Yeah, it's very absolutely the A1 and the
yeah. So about those, we had the idea of doing something slightly different this week with the artist guest, and we actually asked Martin to pick 3 images of his choice from his portfolio for us to so he could tell us about the story behind taking those photos and how he got to achieve them. As already mentioned, one of those is Ferry Bridge Power Station, so that's a beautiful little segue to jump in. That's going to be on your screen now. So Martin, why don't you go ahead and tell us about the story of taking this photo?
I think it was around about 2014. I took that. Obviously, it was way before they knocked the cooling towers down, but we knew that it was going to be finishing sometime soon because the Ferry Bridge went from coal burning to gas, so they didn't need the big boilers and all that, so they were going to demolish the cooling tower. So it is a location I'd seen before, It's a bridge it's now really hard to get to, but then it was quite hard to get to a bridge. But it's got all the elements that foreground interest as well as the power station itself. It's got, because it's a good distance from the station, and I used a long lens or a long focal length, so it sort of shortens the perspective. So you get the S curves of the motorway. They're actually nowhere near as sharp as they look there, but that lens has really shortened that. And obviously if you do it at night or at the right time at the golden hour, you can get the light trails, and that's what I did. I think that was about from memory, it was about 30 seconds at I think it was about F8, something like that. I can't remember exactly. But
are you based near Ferry Bridge, or did you travel there specifically?
I travelled there specifically. I'm down in Sheffield, so it's about 30 miles south, but it's not too great a distance up the A1. But I went specially to that location, to do it. It was a very muddy field and nearly getting stuck, and it was very cold on the bridge. So I remember that. But it came out really well, and obviously shooting raw, which is what I tend to do now. I'm getting more experienced at having a finished image in my mind, and then you shoot raw to achieve something that you can work with. And then you look at the raw file and you think, it's a fatal mistake. You shouldn't do that on the back of a camera, but you look at the raw file and go, oh dear, that doesn't look very good. But then when you get it right, you're back home and wow, excellent, and away you go. Yeah. So that was that one.
So I see there's a sort of theme happening here then, because you've then taken the same approach with your image of Battersea Power Station. Dan, can we bring that up on the screen?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that took a bit of planning as well, because obviously I'm quite lucky actually. It was just before we got shut down.
Oh, really?
With it was I can't remember when it was, but it was not long before. I think it was about January last year.
Right.
Yeah, that was finding that location and finding a place, obviously, because that was really busy, because it's sort of Victoria, the outskirts of Victoria Station there, and there's a bridge with a little footway that sort of leads down to some flats. So I had to find a place where I could set up, obviously, again, because I knew I needed to get the right perspective, but I also needed to be able to be there for a long time and not get in people's way, because of lots of people walking past. You got your tripod out, and obviously, that's what. And obviously, you have to consider things like that. Took a lot of work, because when I did actually eventually get there, the bridges that I'd planned to use to sit on, to sit the tripod on, were very sort of flimsy. So there's me trying to do a 30-second exposure, and there's people walking on, and it's like bouncing up and down the bridge. And it was like, really. I eventually managed to find a place where I could get the tripod legs on the concrete bits. So it did take a lot of effort. But obviously, that's a similar sort of thing with the S-curves of the track and the foreshortening of the lenses. But obviously, got the details of inside the carriage sidings there, which is, there's so much detail in that image. If you look at it high res, it's amazing. And obviously,
it's incredible.
The Sony helped there, because obviously it's 42 megapixels, so you can get that you can really get the detail. And I'd love to print that just to see how big it would actually print. It cost I know, but it'd be nice to see it on a billboard almost. But, yeah.
I mean, for me, I mean that's the standout one out of the three images, because I love Battersea Power Station. I've had to go several times at photographing it myself, because I mean, obviously, we know it features on the Pink Floyd album, and I got into design because of things like that album cover of Storm Thorgerson, who
Flying Pigs, brilliant.
And I don't know if you've ever read the story.
It also works out for the pun when pigs fly. So there we go.
The actual shooting of the pig on that power station.
I think I've heard something about it. Didn't it? Was it tethered and it got away and floated above the chimneys, and he thought, yes, that's the one.
Yeah, because the day one of shooting was a disaster. They didn't get a single shot. They hired a marksman for day one, just in case the pig got loose. On day two, when they went back to try and get the shot, the pig broke loose, but they didn't hire the marksman that day. So the next,
it just floated in the right place.
Yeah, it floated in the right place. But then beyond that, it went off over Heathrow's flight path. And there's loads of, whether they're true or not, stories about farmers, sort of saying that they'd seen it, go over their fields and stuff like that, and it's quite amazing. I've just recently rebought the book where he talks about that, and I mean that's why I love that image, because it just conjures those stories for me, which is
yes.
So yeah. Well, exactly, yeah. I think there is something related to that. I'm not going to go into the details here because it's quite sordid, but it was someone who'd been promised something, and his wife had said, "When pigs fly." So there you go. But that's brilliant.
So that was that one really, and obviously the railway images, the railway aspect of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Martin, you mentioned when you were talking about your Ferry Bridge one, something that really jumped out was that when you take the raw shot, you're picturing how it's going to look with your post-processing in your mind. How do you go about setting up these shots to try and match your vision in your head, and how close are these final results to what you're imagining them to look like?
Well, it depends. I mean, sometimes if you get to a location and for instance, let's think of an example, not that one specifically, but you'll get to a location and say it's overcast, or the sky is just very bland. It's just, there's no clouds, and I'll expose so that the sky that the foreground is underexposed and the sky is correctly exposed. So I can maybe blend a different sky in with the clouds and things like that sometimes, or the other way around. If it's a nice sharp edge between the sky and the subject, you can overexpose the sky, and then it's easy to, if you want to put another sky in the image, you can do quite easily then, because you put a sky in a overexposed area, which works a lot better. But again, that nowadays, obviously, Photoshop's just brought out this sky replacement tool, which works very well. So that goes back to what we were saying about smartphones. It's getting so easy for people to produce really, really impressive looking stuff. I mean, when I started, and as I say, when Nigel was showing me how to do stuff, and we were replacing skies, it was like really hard to do it, effectively. There was no, the masking was really, really basic, and you had to really, it was more important to take the image, the raw file, so that you could then, if you were going to do something like a manipulation like that, you had to have the raw file exposed correctly, as it just wasn't possible. If you were trying to put a sky behind some trees or something like that, it used to be really difficult. Whereas now it's automatic almost. Somebody, in many instances with photos with Photoshop, it can be a lot easier. So, but yeah, with raw files, it's just, I tend to underexpose really. I know that sort of goes against the grain, because they always say it's better to do it the other way, because you get more dynamic range if you expose to the right. Is it on the Instagram? I can't remember. But I tend to not do that, because I find it's easier if even if it's underexposed. It's with the dynamic range of cameras, especially mirrorless cameras like the Sonys. I'm sure the Canons have now caught up, but the Sonys, with the dynamic range is so much that you can just pull the shadow details out, and the noise is just fantastic. There's no noise unless you go silly, obviously. But they're amazing. Mirrorless cameras are amazing.
They're incredible. I use the Sony A7 III for video shooting, and it's just become my favorite multi-use camera for both stills and video. I absolutely love them.
They are good. Superb.
So your third image, my pronunciation of locations is terrible. Is it the Orson Bridge?
Orison.
There we go.
Sweden and Denmark.
The guys roast me every week for that. So, Orison Bridge. Why don't you tell us a bit about this one? This one is gorgeous. What you've done with the long exposure on the sea there is incredible.
Yes, that was the best image I think I got of the whole trip, because the trip was planned just to take those pictures. I had a 3 or 4 day break in Malmo, which is on the Swedish side of the bridge, and it came about because I watched The Bridge, which was a series on about 2 or 3 years ago. A Nordic crime drama based around that area. That's because it's called The Bridge. It was based on 2 detectives, one from Sweden, from the Swedish side, one from Denmark, from Copenhagen. And it was really, really good. 3 series, and it was the cinematography was fantastic. So I thought, I've got to go there and take pictures of that bridge. It's just amazing. So we stayed in a little campsite, just literally on the Swedish side. It was about half a mile from the end of the Swedish side of the bridge. And I Googled all the locations that I wanted to take. You planned it all to that level. And it worked absolutely brilliant because the weather was fantastic. But that particular one, I got set up in the location for it. Got the was that one obviously with the sun. That sun is actually there.
Really
it wasn't.
Cool.
I've not added it later. It was just perfect. It was just behind the bridge railings. But I'd forgotten. I've got my 10-stop filter to get the long exposure because it was quite a lot of light around. So I got the 10-stop on. But then I forgot the graduated filter to go over the top of it. I literally forgotten to bring them with me. And so what I ended up doing with that one was, I think, again, that was a 30-second exposure. And I literally did a manual exposure with a cable release, just opened it up. And then after about 15 seconds, I I got my fingers like that. If you imagine that's the lens, because it's a circular filter, and I just put my fingers over half the lens, thinking that's where the sky's going to be roughly. And did the last 15 seconds of the exposure with my fingers in front of the sky. And it just worked out absolutely brilliantly. So I used my fingers as a graduated filter for that one.
I can't unsee that now that I'm looking at it.
But it was the only way I could do it and not get the sky blown, even with the 10 stop on. So it worked perfectly. Yeah, that was one of the best ones. I did. I got some really good ones because the weather was very kind. I did another one where again, using a long lens, I have to shorten the bridge so it looks really curved. It is curved, but it's about 5 miles long. It's an incredible structure. But I've got like an image of it where it looks foreshortened, and it looks like it really curves round, within half a mile, and that was good because again, that was a long exposure. You get the light trails of the cars on the bridge, which was nice. But yeah, it's a fantastic place. It's one of my favourite all-time trips. Yeah. But it was the most expensive one as well because the whole thing was planned on just getting those images. And not to say we didn't. I mean, we enjoyed Copenhagen and Malmo, and it was a great holiday. But yeah, we spent a lot of time getting cold, and my wife was like my assistant, and she was like frozen. She was passing me the lenses and stood there, and it was she did me proud. She likes the locations we get to, and she likes, obviously, because we do quite a lot of walking to the locations, and she enjoys that part of it. But she can get rather chilly because when you're concentrating, you don't sort of feel the cold, and then when you've done it and you're finished, you suddenly realise that you've frozen, and you think, "Oh, she's been stood here for an hour like this," So yeah, she's good. Absolutely, yeah. Not another camera you want. Yes.
Yeah. It's really interesting how you say you like to make your colours pop as much as possible, but it's interesting how with your black and white parts of your portfolio as well, you achieve like such a similar aesthetic, but in a monochrome style. When you visit these places and you take the photos, do you ever envisage it in black and white when you're there, or are you just experimenting when you get back?
It's been a bit of both, really. I prefer doing colour, but sometimes I find when you get really nice blue summer skies with fluffy clouds, and some of the things you can do with black and white processing is amazing. You can make the sky. Again, you're sort of making it really pop because the sky's unnaturally dark. You can make the sky unnaturally dark, but I like that effect. You can really make. I did some of the Cotswolds not long ago, and I actually preferred. I think it was Upper and Lower Slaughter in the Cotswolds, just real chocolate box scenes, and they look really good in colour, but they just look chocolate boxy, if you know what I mean. Whereas if they're black and white, they were perfect for conversion to black and white, and I actually prefer the black and white ones. But sometimes, most of the time, I think if you've got an eye for what's going to sell, I think, and it's hard to say, but there are some fantastic black and white images on the site. But I don't think they seem to sell as well as colour. So you've got to think: are you doing it totally for artistic reasons, or are you trying to sell the image? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's difficult. Black and white is definitely popular. It's always in our most searched terms.
Yes.
And you get people like John Farnan. I don't know if you know.
He's
a great black and white photographer. He does color as well, but his black and white work is brilliant as well. It's you're right. It's a mixed bag. It's deciding what you want to do creatively, and also what's appealing to customers when they're searching on that page. Yeah. Off that, I told you this previously, Martin, but me and John had a really funny story when I told John that I was getting you on. When John introduced me to Photo4Me, and he was showing me the back end and browsing the artist site for the first time. We was going through photos, and he was showing me what to sort of look for the editor's choice. And this photo of Ferry Bridge Power Station just jumped out, and John was like, "Oh, this is just is stunning." He was like, "Look at the work that's gone into this. This is just caught my eye amongst all these things." And it was yours, obviously. That's where I'm going with this. It was yours. But there's something about the way you make your colors pop artistically that just grab your attention on a search page. And you're one of those artists that over the years have developed their own unique style. And now when I'm searching for a search term, I can immediately spot which one is a K7 photography piece. And I think that's just stemmed from your years of experimenting with your post processing and finding out what works for you.
Yes, that's true. Because I mean, if you, I don't have a, people talk about workflows, don't they? They always do this with an image. I mean, I suppose I have got a sort of very basic workflow, but it depends on what the image is. I couldn't, if you asked me to say what's your workflow, I couldn't really tell you, because it does vary, quite a lot.
Well, then that's important. It's about the image, then, isn't it? Really. I mean, you were saying about choosing between black and white and color. It's more about what is the image that defines whether you do it in color or whether you do it in black and white, whether you over process one part or not. It's purely down to whether the image deserves it or requires it, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's right.
So you obviously do quite a bit of traveling, and currently happening
when you can. Yeah.
But I mean, have you got any plans to go anywhere and do anywhere when this is all up and running? All up and over?
I haven't got any actual images in my mind plan, but I just think when we get released, I mean, I'm lucky enough to be able to travel with caravan, and it's brilliant for photography because you go on I go on small sites, out of the way quite often for landscape. If you want to go somewhere, you sort of site yourself in the middle of the area you want to be, and it's brilliant. So. I don't know. I fancy a bit more Cornwall again. So probably Cornwall. And maybe up, we thought maybe, I've never been to Northern Ireland to do photographs. So we thought maybe go and stay somewhere up Stranraer way and go across on the ferry and maybe have a look at Giant's Causeway, stuff like that maybe.
Yeah, I think that, really nice pictures of Giant's Causeway.
Yeah, just things like that. Things that I think they're probably. I mean, you be able to tell more about that. But I think things like Giant's Causeway and I'm not saying that they're cliched, but things that are well known and common are going to be good for search terms, aren't they? Like when you go to London, you look at the London Bridge, or you look at the search terms and things that are popular. I don't know. Does that have a better chance of selling? But that goes back to: are you doing it purely to try and sell images, or are you just trying to let your? Because I think if you did that too much, the work you would. Well, I think my work would suffer if I wasn't really sort of enjoying or thinking, "Wow, that's fantastic!" Like the Orison Bridge, for instance. If I wasn't sort of motivated by it, I don't think I do believe that you don't do as good a job if you're not motivated. If you know what I mean. If you're just going to try and take lots of images that you think might sell, I think that can, for me, it has a negative effect sometimes.
Well, I think what's important for anyone watching is that, it's fine to go to popular locations, but for example, a K7 take on Ferry Bridge Power Station will look dramatically different to anyone else's. And it's more about, focusing on expressing your artistic take on that location, and appealing to a customer, find the customer that appeals to more. Customers have different artistic tastes as well as the locations they're looking for. So the more different variations of, say, Tower Bridge that goes on the site, the better. But as long as you're passionate about the direction you're taking it and it's right for your artistic style, I think that's really important.
That's very true. I I've had quite a bit of success with an image of Sycamore Gap on Hadrian's Wall, and I remember being there actually and thinking, how can I make this look different? Because everybody, or all the images that I've seen, many of the images I've seen, they take it. Obviously, it's the famous tree that's in the U shape of the wall. The wall comes down, but everybody takes it straight on. So you've got the U-shaped valley and then the tree in the middle, and it's a fantastic location. But I remember thinking, I tried to climbing all over the place for about half an hour until I got it from the side, and that worked well. I mean, I haven't seen anybody. They'll all go out and do it now, but it worked well. You know, to that's another thing I would say. If you've got time and you're at a place, don't. It's a big temptation to just start, unless the light is bang on and you need to take the photo now. Don't do it straight away. Walk around. Don't be, especially if you've got a zoom lens, because people tend to just stand in one location and zoom in and out. And I used to do that, but I don't do that now. I just spend quite a bit of time walking about before checking out different angles. And you know, sometimes it's 10 minutes, quarter of an hour. If you've got the time, obviously, if you get there early enough and you're waiting for a sunset or something. Yeah. So that's what I did with that one, and that seemed to work quite well. Yeah,
that's brilliant. Well, I think before we wrap up, I mean, we kind of already answered the question I'm about to ask, but is there any advice? You've obviously been quite successful selling your art. Is there any advice you'd give to any of the community that are, you know, pursuing this during lockdown, or you know, trying to achieve their first sale? Is there anything you can give for them to take away before we go?
I would say just. Yeah, obviously there's a lot of images on Photos4Me now, so don't be despondent if you don't sell very quickly, you know, because I mean we all go through that. I mean I go through months without selling one, and you think, oh no, what's wrong? And it's nothing that's wrong. It's just the fact that how it comes together. If you've produced a nice image, a really good image, somebody will, and you obviously you keep pressing this, and it's true. The keywords. Getting the keywords right, obviously, for the searches are, as you keep saying, very important. But don't get despondent. I would say, because if you produce a nice piece of work, and it's keyworded, someone will see it and they will buy it eventually. That was my take on it. I think it took me quite a long time to sell my first one, and I must admit, it is a good feeling. You think, wow, somebody wants my canvas on their wall, and it does give you a good buzz. Yeah. Every time.
We can imagine. Well, Martin K7, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we have.
No, I've been great. Yeah, thank you.
And you know, all the best with selling your art in the future, and we'll hope to get you on again soon as we grow our little podcast.
Absolutely, anytime. Yeah, love to.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot for joining us, Martin, and all the best.
Yes. See you guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Martin. See ya.
Bye now. Bye.
So yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much, Martin. That was a great interview, and thanks for joining us. Just to recap, this week we covered our research tool and how that's going to really change the way that we work and you guys can work. Giving you more power again, which is what we're aiming to do. If you want to get involved with us at the podcast, reach out to us, and you can do so on the Facebook group or on social media. Dan is waiting to speak to you. So thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.
Bye.